So then any teachers that want to, if they had extra time, or if you wanted to switch out for one of the optional units at the end, you could use it. So I thought, well, let me prototype this in my classroom. And these are their lessons that they have in there, starting off, just asking the question, what is AI? Taking a look into artificial intelligence, how it's used in smart cities, homes, and schools. They do have a really cool lesson about neural networks in there, which I didn't do in my classroom. I'll explain, reasons for that later. They have lessons about image recognition. And then the last three very important topics about the impact of artificial intelligence and the ethics and dilemmas that are associated with it. So I covered most of it with my class, but then when we went to distance learning, at home learning, and people were asking for lessons that they could offer for their computer science students, I was like, well, I already have these done. I use Google Classroom, so I have all these Google Docs. So I put them together in hopes that other teachers could go ahead and use it and offer this for their students at home. But as you can see, I don't cover as much as the ECS unit. And like I said, I switched out a couple of things that I was using because I was more familiar with them than the types of online stuff that they were using for ECS. All right, so what I'm gonna do is gonna kind of flip back and forth here between these slides and the actual lessons themselves. So the first lesson is, it's kind of like, when you're teaching programming and the first thing that you ever teach is like, well, let's program hello world. Well, for artificial intelligence, I think that's the hello world lesson is what is artificial intelligence. So let me see if I can pull up and you guys will be able to see it. Are you able to, did you see I switched the screen or am I gonna have to?
Yeah, we're in a different tab now.
Awesome. All right, okay. So if you go into the units, you'll see that there's 4 lessons. There's also an overview that talks about what's in each lesson. But for right now, I'm gonna just go ahead and start into lesson 1. And inside the folder is a Google Doc that is the lesson plan itself. There's documents that I'll have links in the lesson plan directly to the documents. And then I also put in some slides that you can use or not use with the students. So if we look at the lesson plan, and all of these are multiple day lessons. I had the Endure and Understand this from the AI for K-12 stuff that I mentioned before. But as you can see in this lesson, the major things that are happening is basically, what is artificial intelligence? How do we define it? And the way to do this is, let the kids watch some videos, let them do some interactive websites online. And then I offer some worksheets for you as well to use with the kids to, check their understanding. So I'll just show you. So if we go down here, so exploring, here, the warm up is a couple of videos. So I'm not gonna, really show videos here. You guys can watch those. And for this one is try, to get the kids to put forth, what do you think artificial intelligence is? What do you think it looks like? And I usually just do a Google Doc or where the kids could all share and they could put their answers in and see what other kids answer, or you can, do it however you want. But I found this one website, so the next lesson goes in, and I know we're going to use the terms artificial intelligence and machine learning kind of interchangeably. And in the next lesson, we'll get more specific into what is machine learning. But this is a cool website. Some of these things take a minute or two to load. It's from the Royal Society.
So Nora, how long would you say, like all told, how many days did you use up teaching this chunk of material? Is it like a week?
At least 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah, and being, distance learning, I mean, you could stretch it out too. I mean, because like they say, whatever you would do in your classroom, like in one class period, you would expect to take longer. Okay, so this is, like I said, this is one really cool website where you go around and all these different buildings, and here, like, here's a school. How do we use machine learning in school? And they're all different. And some just you read, some you watch a video, sometimes you do an interactive thing with it. So you could literally spend the equivalent of an entire class period just having the kids go through and investigate all the different ways that machine learning and artificial intelligence are used in these different areas. First time I used this was with the summer camp last year. I think the kids, learned a lot there. I have a Google Doc that goes along with it. So here's all the locations. I didn't make my kids do all of them. I had them, pick some because I said 5. You could change that up however you want, and go through and I tried to focus the questions on what actually is happening inside each one. I don't know yet. I guess, most people are probably muted, but if you have a question, don't hesitate. Guess I'm not used to just being the main one talking all the time. Okay.
So did you do this in class, Nora, or you did this once we were in lockout?
Everything that I'm showing you here, I did in class. As far as distance learning, yeah, so I had already done it. So when I put it together and offered it out to other teachers that might not have done it yet in their curriculum, because normally, I think this is being offered as something like you do either as kind of like a last unit or a unit in place of the robotics type of thing. Or even for the AP classes, this is something that you could do like after the AP, like right now.
Right.
I think I'm gonna do a modified version of this for my computer science principals kids. Okay. Right. So yeah, so that's an investigation there, and hopefully the kids are getting a better idea of, what is artificial intelligence and how many different ways that they see it. The next part of this is starting to look more about this concept of smart cities and the fact that we need to use a lot of sensors in order to read in the data that's necessary for artificial intelligence. And then the last part of this whole lesson, this is actually kind of fun. If you haven't used the Google AI experiments yet, I mean, you could get lost in here for kind of a long time. So when I originally did this, I had put in links for a whole bunch of different experiments. But in this version, I don't. I just have the link to the page. So it's up to you. You might want to go in and pick certain ones that you would want your kids to actually look at, because there's so many in here. And some are a little bit better than others. There is a nice introductory video up here that you can have the kids watch about why these are here and what Google's doing. And if we go down, has anybody ever seen the quick draw? This is pretty cool. Now I think it's going to talk to me, and I like that I have a touch screen, so I can draw.
I like the quick draw. It's fun.
It is fun. All right, so it says draw a tornado, and it's so it actually talks to you and says what it's guessing as you're drawing it. Okay, so it's fun, right? And I guess, wait, what was I supposed to draw? Oh, a church. Asparagus. Okay.
Wow.
All right, so I'm going to try to close this. Yeah. All right, so there's a bunch of other ones, and try to get the kids to think about, well, what's it doing? How's it working? Why? Most of these are for fun, but I also want the kids to try to think about, well, is there like a problem that could be solved with this type of artificial intelligence? This duet one is really cool too. I'm sorry, I have to play it. I can't help myself. And it's cool that I have a touchscreen, and I know that most of the kids don't. But start playing, that's me in blue, and that's the AI playing along with me. So, oh, and it didn't stop. And my son plays piano, so I asked him to play with it. It's like, well, what's it doing? Is it playing in the same key and whatnot? And he said that's pretty much what's happening. It's just trying to match, your key and tempo of what you're doing. All right. So, and that's pretty much the first lesson. Just getting the kids to dive in and see, what does AI look like? What are the types of things, that we can use it for? Any questions so far?
I don't see any in the chat, but if also if anyone has any and they want to talk, they can unmute themselves.
Okay. All right. Sure I didn't miss anything here. So, honest with you, the next lesson about machine learning is actually kind of complicated. It can be complicated, it can be easy. I guess it depends on and how you present it. But what I really wanted to do is, especially because I was teaching high school kids, is to learn a little bit more than, just the fun stuff. Although I think that the things that you do in here are fun. So, pretty much two parts of it is learning more specifically about what machine learning is. And then within machine learning, this concept of what's called supervised machine learning. And then an example of that called sentiment analysis. And we actually get to use a tool. So I'm going to go back here, close that. I'm going to go over to lesson 2. And you can see there's a lot more stuff going on in here. Right. So there are lots of cool videos. Here it is. And I actually did want to show, in the lessons, I have the link to this entire video, which I would want the kids to watch. But I'm going to start it right now at a certain point. It's a little bit very specific examples of machine learning and the ways that it's used to help solve a problem.
I'm not hearing any sound.
No, I don't think we can hear audio.
You can't hear the audio?
Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys have the link. But one of the cool things that happens in here, the example that they show, write down. So there's a cucumber farmers, and it's a small family business, and the job that they have is they have to sort the cucumbers, not just by size, but by how crooked they are and all kinds of things like that. And it was very labor intensive. So it shows how the son sets up and records all these different cucumbers by size and shape and so forth and so on. And he uses machine learning to teach a machine to identify it, and then sets up a system as new cucumbers come in. You can see how it sorts them, so the family doesn't have to do that anymore. So it's just one really cool example, and it's just a family doing it. There's another one in here where they just use a graphic to show a person has a cat that constantly comes over and bugs their house. So they set up a camera outside and they trained it to identify the difference between cats and other natural animals around. And when the neighbor's cat came over and it identified and said, yeah, that's the cat, it would turn on the water sprinklers and make the cat disappear. So it wouldn't do whatever it was doing in the yards. So lots of fun stuff like that. And then I have other videos that talk about machine learning and start introducing concepts. And for supervised machine learning, there's a couple of important things to try to get across to the kids. And that's the fact that you need to start with data that you already have labeled. Okay. So the project that they're eventually going to do is machine learning for kids is they're going to have 2 different labels, happy and sad, and we're going to use text. And so we have to start with, okay, here's a phrase, here's a sentence, this one's happy, this one's sad, and just put in as much data as you can. And then it gets run through some machine learning algorithms that comes up with a model. And that model, and I tell the kids, the model is nothing more than an equation. So when you're ready, after you run the model and you want to test it, you type in just any phrase. And it comes through and it predicts based on the data that you already fed it, whether this is something that should be labeled happy or sad. So I, use a diagram here. I even provide a video of me, kind of talking through it. So if you're not comfortable talking through it, you can use my video as well. And then we get to the point where we're ready to use machine learning for kids. Now, here's my caveat though for this. There's a lot of setup if you want to have the kids have an account of their own. You can go into ML for Kids and not create an account. The only thing is it doesn't save anything. So this is kind of like a two-part thing. The first part is that you're going in and you're collecting your data, your labeled data, you're creating the machine, you're running it, and you're testing it. But then you can go in and you can make a Scratch program that uses that model, and the program runs and you put in some new stuff. So it's like you're testing it in Scratch. So if you don't have a user account, nothing gets saved. You can save your Scratch program, but your actual machine learning model doesn't get saved. So you have to kind of finish it all in one piece. If you want to create user IDs for the kids, there are instructions in here. I should go back here. My apologies. Somewhere in here, I definitely have, here, yeah, there's a link. So there's teacher instructions that walk you through, because what you have to do is you have to set up an API with the IBM Watson computer in order to be able to run the machine algorithms. But the good thing is you only have to do it once. So if you have the time, sit down, get it done, do it once, and then every time you go back into your account, that part's done. You never have to do it again. So that's pretty good. But like I said, you can get your kids to use the tool without an account. It just won't be saved. But I do want to show you what it looks like. So I have my own account, and I've gone in here and I've been able to save projects. And I wanted to show you one because sometimes when you run these, it takes, for text, it'll take a couple of minutes for it to work. And you can do one with images. And sometimes when you want to actually, run and create the ML model, it could take like a good 15, 20 minutes. So when it's your turn to do a new project, you would click on the plus sign here, but I already have a project. And it brings you into here. You'll name it. And there's 3 stages. The first stage is that you want to train. And this is where that vocabulary comes into play. So you're going to ask the kids, you're going to tell them, well, you need to make your labels. Now, back in the slides, I said happy and sad. This is just a different version of that. Like you could, if you guys are doing synchronous stuff with your kids and you're able to Zoom with the kids, you could probably do all this together, where you'll make a label, you'll call it happy, you'll make another label, you'll call it sad. And then you go in and you start adding examples. Like you can see right now, I have 15 of each. The more examples that you have, the better. So I'll just show you what that looks like. I'm trying to think of something that's positive. I'm always terrible at this. This is why I ask the kids, shout out, tell me things. How about we say good day? That's a positive statement, right? And then over here, I can add another example of something that would be negative, and that would be, I broke something. Okay, so it can be words, it can be phrases, but it would be more natural to be phrases and sentences. And then put in a bunch of neutral ones, which are things that kind of don't evoke a feeling. But for the younger kids, you would want to keep it to just the 2, happy and sad. For older kids, you might want to put in more labels. So once you have all of your labeled data collected, then you're ready to come back here and click on Learn and Test. And this is where the machine learning happens. I have already run this. So you can see down here, it shows that I have a model. I ran it earlier today, and it's actually ready for me to use it. So the only thing you're going to see here is, okay, now test it. So I put in some kind of sentence.
Time to go.
Time to go. Cool. And I hit test. and it says neutral. It's
Right.
not happy, it's not sad, it came back neutral. What if I say time to go to, I don't even remember what my data is in there, party.
Ooh,
Still neutral, but you notice the confidence level went down. So it's not as sure. So we put in something.
time to go to bed.
Let's put in something we think that should be happy, like I am glad you are here. Positive, but 95% confident. Okay, so it's finding a close match, not exactly. Something that should be sad would be, how about you hurt me? Negative, oh, 100% confident. Okay, so you could just take it this far, you know, have the kids train it. But the other cool thing is you can go ahead to this make section. And you can notice it's, if you have older kids and you've already done Python, like my computer science kids have, the computer science principles, I might have them go into Python. But the lessons that I have set up here use Scratch 3. So you open it up and they tell you there's some directions here and whatnot. I already have this loaded up. Okay, so here's mine. I made this earlier today. And Scratch 3, if you've been using it, it's the exact same thing. You just have your extra blocks down at the bottom that are hooked back to ML for Kids. So when I created this model, it put these in here, and you notice that I have them in my program. So I'm using the ask and wait, and the answer is going to be checked. It's going to return a label, and if that label is positive, I want to do one thing, but if the label comes back as negative, I want to do another thing. So I can run this, and Scratch asks me, how are you today? You say, I am great. Hopefully I spelled it right. And yep, says you sound happy. So I got the right answer, yay.
How does it handle misspellings?
It'll give it a label. It definitely will give it a label. So let's click it again and just put in whatever, right? Of course, all of your pictures are on top. It says, okay, nice to meet you, which was my neutral response.
Okay.
So if you only had happy and sad, it would pick one of them. It would come back with an answer. It has to come back with an answer. So you have to figure out, you know, for your kids, like if you wanted to use this for distance learning, how well would they handle something like this? Because if things didn't work right, like if they created the model, but it somehow got deleted and they went into their Scratch program later, the Scratch program will run, but it's always going to default to something. Like I'll show you, I'm going to take out the answers here because this was a mistake I had earlier today. And I ran it, and I can put in, I am happy, and the program still works, but you notice it's going to come back and just say, okay, nice to meet you, because it wasn't positive, wasn't negative. It came back as blank. Okay. But another reason that I put this lesson out there as well is like maybe a lot of teachers would be interested in this for the next school year as well. When you're in person in one way or another, where, you know, you can walk the kids through these things a little bit better. Okay. So the purpose, so the kids get directions for all that. Okay, it's all in the lesson plans. There's Google Slides. It goes step by step. And if you're interested in this tool, by the way, there are tons more projects. If you just, those are my worksheets. If you go to ML for Kids and then go over to worksheets, you scroll down, you can see all of these different projects and all of the directions are there. All right, so I only used one of them. I'm like excited to be able to go back at some point and use a bunch more of them. Different difficulty levels, and like I said, you can either do Scratch or you can do Python. So it's pretty cool. If you do a teacher account, you have your own page here. This is part of setting up the API keys. You also have your students, like I set up student accounts. I made them default just to my high school so that I could use them for multiple classes. And down here for supervision, when the kids go in and do their models, you're actually limited. That's the problem, is that when they run and make the model, I think you're limited to maybe 3 of them at one time. So one kid will be using it and be able to test it, or 2, 3 kids, but then the other kids, it won't. They'll get an error message when they try to run it. So it's good, but it's bad. It's restrictive. You can pay money and actually get more models, but I just went with the free version. Right. So, but like I said before, if the kids don't make an account, they could go in, they go through the whole thing, it just doesn't save it. Okay. And so that's lesson 2, although I did want to show you at the end of the slides, these are the slides for the lesson. Just the part to have the kids thinking about, okay, how good was your data? So this is kind of like a warm up that I had one day. It's like, okay, so you have happy or sad or neutral. How would you label this data? Let's say, you're feeding it in, and I get, a class consensus, and some kids will notice like, well, I hate it when people are mean. Well, that's bad, but the mean of the data is neutral, but we use the word mean twice. Okay, so, keep that in mind. I had a great day. Well, it's obviously positive. And down here, I said, oh, great, this day stinks. That's negative. So that's that thing about the English language and the way that we use our words. So I, had the kids, we did this together as a class, and then we went in and we said, well, what if I typed in, oh, great, good news from my doctor? How do you think our model would label this based on the way great was used before? Okay, because it was used twice. And then there's, I accept your apology. I know you did not mean to hurt me. Well, there's that word mean. Is it going to come up neutral, or is it going to come up negative, kind of thing? And also, as far as sentiment analysis goes, is having a conversation with the students. What are some other examples of why would you want to use this? The most popular answer is, and the one that I use in the lesson, is when you go in online and like you rate a product. Instead of me having to go in and read all of my product reviews, I can just run the text through a sentiment analysis tool, and it will tell me this is good, that's a bad review, this is a neutral review. So it does it for me. If you're in a politician's office and you want to read your tweets, you could hire a person to read every tweet, or you could run all those tweets through sentiment analysis and find out how do people really feel about you. So there's a lot of cool things you can do. Yeah. And this is similar to how your email determines whether something is spam or not spam. It reads the text that's coming in the email, and it picks out key things that it learned and label it spam or not spam. So there's a lot of cool examples for that. So that's lesson 2. Any questions?
Yeah, I don't see any in the chat, so
Okay.
it'd be good.
I'm just taking a minute to break. All right, so the last one actually is really fun. My computers at school did not have cameras, so we had to use pictures that they got online, but it still worked out pretty well. What I was able to do at some point is I had an extra laptop in my laptop, and I let kids, if they wanted to, they had a project where they wanted to use the webcam, I would let them do that. But this is another type of machine learning, and it's the one that they've seen in the videos before. Like I was talking about the cucumbers. The cucumber was using image recognition in order to be able to sort the cucumbers. You can also, have the discussion about neural networks. Like I mentioned before, the Exploring Computer Science does have a really neat non-computer based lesson on neural networks and how they work. I just chose not to do it in my classroom. I don't know, just the mix of the kids that I had in the classroom, I didn't know if it was going to particularly work. But if you do look at the Exploring Computer Science, it's a pretty cool lesson. where they sit in layers and they get little bits and pieces of information, and one layer has to talk to the next layer until at the end you come up with a label for what this image is. Okay. What I do instead is I found one video. Oh, here it is, where this gentleman, and I know you guys can't hear it, so I'll mute this here. So he has the webcam, and his webcam video is running through a neural network, and actually it's a convolutional neural network. And he's talking about the different layers, and that's another one of those machine learning words that we want the kids to get used to. And filters, it also is running through different filters. And it also is giving an indication that computers, robotics, sensors, they see things very differently than humans do. This is what his computer is seeing and interpreting. It's doing edges, it's doing shading, it's doing texture, but it's not seeing the way our human eye is seeing things, okay? And if you think about it, remember we're teaching our kids that everything on the computer is ones and zeros? So the computer has to do that, has to break everything down and essentially give it a numerical value. So I thought this was a really cool video. Later on, he shows you the labels that the computer's coming. And it's kind of funny because it says that he's wearing a bow tie, which he's not, but that's the best it could do. And then he holds up a water bottle, and you can see it labels it a water bottle. So that's a pretty cool video. And just for these kids, just a top level, what is a neural network type of thing, and then get more into thinking about how can we use image recognition to solve a problem, and using Google's Teachable Machine, which I have over here, and I probably have to switch. Okay, can you see my cats and dogs now? Okay, cool. All right, so this is Teachable Machine. You folks have a link to it, and the cool thing is that it has its own tutorials. So I didn't have to make up a tutorial about it, and it's very easy to use. This is a project that I already have. Similar to what you just did in ML for Kids, you have to come up with your labels. So easy example, can you tell the difference between a cat and a dog? Well, you have to tell it what is a cat and what is a dog. So you notice I uploaded 10 images of cats and 10 images of dogs, sorry. After you're done, you'll click a button here. This is pretty quick. Considering it's doing image training, it actually is pretty quick. And you'll notice that for my test, now here's what's important, you gotta tell the kids, don't use your training data for your test, because it's gonna come back and say 100%, because it was in its training data. You need to give it new images that it's never seen before. And then it gives it so it's 85% confident that that's a picture of a cat. So I do have a couple more pictures I can put over here. I have this picture, and now it says 95% confident it's a dog. Awesome. Well, what if I give something it's not a cat and it's not a dog? Yes, I did that. Okay, so in case you didn't know, Baby Yoda is a dog. So, and I tried it. You can use your webcam. So I have another one of these called Red Duck, Yellow Duck, where, can you guys see my ducks here? Okay, I trained it on these two ducks. All right, so a red duck and yellow duck, and then I tested it with my orange one. Okay, and of course, when you take the ducks away and it's just me, I think I came up as red duck because it has to pick a label. So, and there's just a lot of fun you can do with it. So what I did the first time through is I had the kid just pick 2 categories, learn to use the tool, okay? And they did a really good job with that. But then I'd like to take it a step further and do that emphasis on, well, let's use this in the real world. How could we use this to solve a problem? So let me take you back. Okay, are we back in my slides? All right. So I do have in the lesson, using image recognition to solve a problem. And I proposed to them 4 examples, but I like the kids to think of their own as well. So I even have in the Google Doc that goes with this. So here are 4 examples, but why don't you maybe come up with your own? And I tried to make it local to Maryland. So Maryland has 2 types of poisonous snakes. I personally can't tell one snake from another. So wouldn't it be cool if I could take a picture on my phone and it could tell me that this is a harmless snake versus one I want to stay away from? I don't know how to identify poison ivy. So this is a real app now. I've seen it advertised. So this is a real thing, but the kids get a chance to build their own. And then I thought, there's so many different, something with the weather, if I could take a picture of the sky, what could it tell me? And then more of a practical thing, and this is where I offered the kids to use the webcam, is hand signals. So, if you wanted to speak with somebody and they were speaking in sign language, could you hold your phone up and could it read the signs for me and interpret them? So you would have to train it on the different hand signals. So you have to, save all the pictures for the different labels and train it. And so, make it a project. And I think, I'm gonna have to switch again, but I actually, oh, no, that was for something else. I had some of them to show for you, but they had kids' names on it and all kinds of stuff. So I didn't, but they did a really good job of that. I thought this was an excellent lesson. And that's it for lesson 3. Now you'll notice that lesson 4 is draft because I ran out of time in school and I wanted to get this out even though it wasn't finished. But this is an important concept and I am going to go back here and fill this out because there's so many good lessons, so many good things in here. And my students did do a project on this, on the impact. They did the impact part. They went in and they had to, as a group, investigate how is artificial intelligence used in either sports or medicine, job force. Some kids did it on cooking, and they had to find out, well, what has changed? And sports. I mean, a lot of kids, that's their interest, and that's huge. The change that's happening in sports right now is just incredible. The kids are even saying, it affected the results of the World Series and all kinds of stuff like that because they're using more artificial intelligence. So like I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to work on this some more. And if you guys wanted to see actual complete lessons, the Exploring Computer Science has them already done. So you can use those as well. And that's what I have for my lessons. And then just to put a pitch out there, if you want to know more about teaching artificial intelligence, IBM and MindSpark Education has put together, I believe it is 9 different units, and it's professional development for teachers. And it's about artificial intelligence, and it's K through 12. It's all of the background, everything you'd want to know about artificial intelligence incorporating in your classroom. You can go out, you can just, you can attend a live webinar with the MindSpark folks, or you can take it on your own on demand and you get a certificate at the end. If you're a Maryland teacher and you want to earn a credit for taking the course, we're going to have 2 3-week sessions. The majority of the time, you're just going to go online and take the IBM MindSpark classes. But because the Maryland requirements for in-person teaching as well, we're going to have 1 90-minute session at the beginning, and then 3 30-minute sessions where we get together, which will be kind of fun because, you work with other teachers, do some breakout rooms. And it's like, okay, I'm a middle school teacher. How are you going to take what you just learned in those couple of lessons and incorporate them into your classroom? And then, so if you finish all the time and get your certificates at the end, you also get a Maryland CPD credit through the Department of Education. So that's a pretty cool thing. I believe I did, this down here is actually a link to the registration form. And the last thing I have is resources. So this is in the folder from the bit.ly. You guys found that. AI for All information about that. By the way, we are having the camp this summer, but it went from 3 weeks last week where the kids got to stay on campus full time to they have to take it from home, and I have to teach them from home. So this is going to be interesting. First of all, I'm not doing any type of Zooming or webinar or anything with kids right now, so I'm going to have to learn how to do that. I'm going to have to learn how to do with them for like 4 or 5 hours a day. So I got to chunk it, you know, do a little bit, let them go, come back. It'll be interesting. The AI for K-12 links are there. That's a good place, excellent place for resources. Here's the Exploring Computer Science unit. And then these are some other things that I think are especially cool. Oh, here's the MindSpark Education, first thing there. This is the Maryland teacher link again. MIT has a whole middle school AI ethics education curriculum that is excellent. Elements of AI. I'm thinking about using this one with my APCSA kids. This is a artificial intelligence curriculum that's pretty advanced. The only thing, it doesn't have a teacher account thing, but I figure the kids could do me screenshots of their progress so I can see how they're doing. This really gets into things about how machine learning works, all the different types and algorithms involved there. Oh, and finally, this person does not exist is where I got those pictures from, in case you need that link as well.